funny. I have waited
No,
so...
just shut the up and do it already.
The Last of Us, Season 2, Episode 2.
Yes, so yeah, well, I watched the episode on Tuesday. It was funny actually because you had texted me the night before saying, "Oh, this chat's going to be hilarious," and so, but I didn't even clock in my head that they would do the golf club scene.
I mean, we said it in our previous review. We were talking about what we were expecting them to do, and this was the quickest I've ever been proven wrong. Like we watched the first episode, and based on that first episode, and based on the fact that they were showing us some of the stuff that the game shows you only at a later time through flashbacks, I really felt like they were gonna change. Well, I mean, the right word is I really hoped that they were gonna change some of the stuff that happens at the beginning of the game just to allow for the story to develop in a slightly different and more organic way. Because in the first episode, we are introduced to Abby and her group, and we're introduced to their mission, right? That they want to kill Joel. So I felt like they wanted to ride the tension a little bit more. But then as soon as the second episode started, I realized that no, they were going to do the thing, because we end episode 1. Actually, we forgot to talk about this scene in last week's episode, because the first episode ends with Ellie coming back home and seeing Joel playing his guitar on the porch, right? And that is the prelude to a scene, a confrontation between Joel and Ellie that we then see. Spoilers, I guess, but we're talking about spoilers. That's fine. We're gonna see later in the game, in the show. And so when the episode starts and she's going on patrol with Jesse, and Jesse is like, "Oh, you and Joel," and she's like, "We're fine. We hash things out in a way, like you understand." Yeah,
I thought that was so lazy.
yeah,
That was and yeah, okay, cool. We might get that in a flashback later on in this season. But when I saw Ellie say that to Jesse, I was like, "Oh, great! Off screen, you're just going to tell us now everything's okay between Joel and Ellie. You're not actually going to show us. You're just going to have a line of dialogue where Ellie tells us, yeah, no, we're actually okay." To try and it feels like you're trying to soften our expectations before you do the big shocking moment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
I hated that.
That happens in the game too.
Well, this and that's poor in the game also.
Yeah. Because as we said, the game has this narrative that keeps using flashbacks and flash forwards and just like changes in perspective to manipulate emotions that wouldn't normally be there, I guess. And this is a prime example. But I do get the idea of, okay, let's hold on to this moment. Let's just show that something happened and maybe things are good, and then we're going to go back to this moment and make it more, flesh it out and make it more important because this episode clearly wanted to establish, hey, maybe there is a way to mend this broken relationship. But actually no, because spoiler alert again, Joel fucking dies in a very similar way to how he dies in the game. And we're going to talk about the differences too when we get to that moment. But first,
yeah, we can go through sort of beat by beat of the plot of the episode.
So I have a few notes here, and they are mostly based on what we said in the first episode. We gave the show a lot of grace, and I tried to defend a few of the choices. You said something that really resonated with me in this episode particularly. You said that you can't stand when shows and TV set in the post-apocalypse have characters who just look pristine straight out of the
Yeah.
Hollywood set. And I was
The clothes are right off the railings of a shop store. Do you know what I mean? All their clothes are perfect.
exactly. And I kind of like defended this, being like, oh, like these are sheltered kids of the Fireflies. Maybe we'll see a gruffer version of them in the next episode. We even joked about Abby packing underneath her coat, which is not true. She's so tiny, and her group. You're right. They are way too beautiful. It's just distracting at this point.
It's so silly. It's honestly, yeah. Anytime we cut to them, it's just like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah. They are, I don't know, it's weird casting. Again, casting in this show has always been a mixed bag. Some of them look fine. I think Owen, like Jake Gyllenhaal light a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They felt they look like kids. Oh, there's a line of dialogue that when they said it in the show, I thought about you and I pictured you just laughing, because when at the end they are confronting Joel in that house, Abby's like, "What do we look like?" And
Yes, I knew this.
Joel says, military. No, you look like fucking kids that are going to school with your little backpacks. You're not military.
It would have been so much cooler if Joel had said something like that as well. He's like, I don't know, like, you look way out of your depth or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, rather than Joel just be this submissive, just like, oh, you look like big, scary military soldiers. It's like, no, they don't. We all can see that. This is dumb. Stop trying to tell us that these people are scary.
They robbed Joel of so many moments in this, and we'll get to that. But first, another thing that we kind of referenced in the first episode, and we were wrong about. They do go back to the homophobic guy.
I know. I was shocked when Tommy's wife came over and just like, pulled her aside. I was like, okay, what's this going to be about? And then when they show him, and I was like, oh my, this is so unnecessary. And also, like, what is the point of that scene?
Okay, so when this was happening, I remembered that this happens in the game too. You have the same scene with the guy apologizing and Ellie
Is
not
it
really.
is it like a quick time button event? Do you have to quickly press B to not apologize or something?
Press X to accept apology from homophobic.
Yeah, this is so stupid.
I mean, as I said the other time, it's okay that they want to address this stuff, and it's okay that an old man in a community like this would think certain things, and they want to flesh it out and show it's realistic, but it's done in a very cartoonish, stupid way. So yeah, I agree with you.
Unless homophobic man is going to have the greatest arc across this season, and then he, we see him in the last episode. He saves Ellie and Dina, and then he makes out with Tommy or something like that.
Well,
and he's
he
like,
is.
now I'm gay. And that's the
I
end of
understand
The Last
now.
of Us season 2.
I understand now how amazing it is. Yeah, no, but he is in the. We'll get to that, I guess. I keep saying that, but like he is in the crowd of people fighting the infected. So they're
I know.
humanizing him.
I thought when they
He was gonna die?
sort of I thought when they tracked in on his face, I was like, oh my god, homophobe is about to get the most brutal death in The Last of Us history, and he's gonna fall over the side and be burned by the oil barrels or something.
Because he deserves it, because of his views, his outdated views. Yeah. So yeah, I was wrong. We were wrong about that too. They went back to it, and it meant nothing.
So in effect, we were right.
Yeah, we were right in criticizing the moment, because this other scene kind of like proved the superficiality with which they are kind of like exploring this theme. Another thing that I was wrong about that I briefly mentioned before is Abby's muscle. And when she was out on the ice and she was really cold, I felt like, hey, she wouldn't be this cold if she had a little bit of muscle, but she doesn't. She's just so tiny.
I
She's
tell you what, though. I tell you what, her cold acting was
yeah,
very good.
she is.
And I imagine they were actually just out in the snow, because like I really felt like she was like, yeah, I don't know. I just thought her performance was really good. I
She
got the
is
sense that they were in
actually.
this very
Yeah,
cold, isolated environment.
yeah, I agree. She is good, and actually, Catherine Dever is her name. I figured out where I saw her before, and it's in this movie that I think is on Disney Plus called "No One Will Save You."
Okay.
Have you ever seen that? It's like a
No,
low.
I kind of recognize her face though.
Yeah, I mean, she's been in a few things, but I recognize her from this movie, which is a low budget sci-fi film. She is a mute living in this small community in a town, American town, and the town gets attacked by aliens. The town gets attacked by aliens, and she's alone, and the town around her doesn't really like her, and you don't know why at the beginning. Well, I mean, this is a tangent, but like, just to say, she's really good. I saw her in this movie. I recommend that movie. It's a fun little sci-fi romp. It's well made, so No One Will Save You, better than this. And she fights off aliens in that movie, so maybe it's what got her the role of Abby.
Yeah, yeah. And I know she originally went to audition for the role of Ellie in season 1 as well.
Yeah,
And
she
didn't
she
get it.
looks she looks the part for Ellie too. So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, so I was liking her performance at the beginning. So how closely did the opening of this episode follow the games? Is she out on patrol on the snow, and then the avalanche happens and releases the clickers?
Yeah, so I remember playing as her in the early game, as she is patrolling this snowy um, hill. They overlooking Jackson. You understand the geography of where you are. You still don't know what you're doing, which is something that the game hangs to for a very long time. You don't really learn what their deal is, and this is something that we'll discuss later when we discuss the Joel scene. But the big difference here is what we also discussed in our previous review, which is the horde of infected attacking Jackson, which is something that doesn't happen in the game. You only have, a bunch of infected on the outskirts of the city. You have Joel on patrol. You have Ellie on patrol, on a different patrol, and they come across Abby's group, and that's where shit goes down. But there's no attack on the town from the infected. This idea of the horde kind of like using the corpses as insulation, which I thought was really clever and really cool, is not really in the
Yeah.
game.
Okay.
So the idea of her kind of like sliding down from this hill onto a pavement of infected and awakening them, and then them going into the town, like attacking the town. That's completely new. That's been introduced in the show.
Yeah, okay. Well, that was a cool scene. I liked the introduction of that. It was a good build up of tension as we see all the heads poking out the snow and we start to see them move. Yeah, it was a good scene, and that sort of really kicks off the episode, and then from there on out, it's kind of all action.
Yeah.
It almost felt like did you watch Game of Thrones?
I've heard this comparison already. No, I
Oh,
haven't
have
seen
you?
the latest. I haven't seen the latest. Sorry, I haven't
It
seen the latest seasons of Game of Thrones, but I know about
okay.
the what's it called, the Night
There's a
Walkers.
big
Yeah.
there's a big battle at Winterfell in the last season, and it was very reminiscent of that to me. And I don't know why. Maybe because it's
In the
in one of
snow.
those situations. No, no. Well, that maybe too, but it's one of those situations where you're seeing this big zombie siege,
Yeah.
and in a way, I don't care about some of the characters, and it's like, oh, I hope the big bloater breaks through the wall and fucking kills some of these people. In a way, you're kind of rooting for the wrong side.
You wanted the bloater to kill Tommy, because I take offense to that.
Not Tommy. When it had its sights set on his wife, though, I was like, oh, here we go.
But yeah, so
But yeah, it was a very good spectacle, and it kicked off a very good action sequence that went on for quite a long time in this episode. I thought it was all pretty well done.
it was well done. It was interesting the way it shows how the city functions and how they, prepared for such cases. Maybe not infected necessarily, but attacks from raiders. And so they have these, I don't know how to call
Like the
them.
oil barrels
Yeah.
that they were chucking off.
Yeah.
Yeah. They should have built a trench around.
Yeah, probably. But it's really good, the scene of all the infected just smashing their heads against the wall, because
that was cool.
Yeah.
Aren't the clickers like they're once you become like a full clicker?
Yeah.
Don't they have superhuman strength?
Clickers are not necessarily super strong. Those are bloaters,
they
and
not?
there's another
Okay.
class. There's another class of zombie that we haven't really seen yet that also has kind of like superior strength. I mean, they have strength in terms of, they are just
like mindless drones, and they don't
Exactly.
feel pain, sort of thing. Yeah, but okay, I thought they had maybe established in the first season that they the clicker version of the infected were way stronger than normal humans, but maybe I'm misremembering.
It is the case in the game, because clickers, they do not have eyes, but they have enhanced hearing, or in some sense they perceive the world around them better. So like you can move really slowly and stop them from the back, but like if you just make a noise, they will they will find you and they will eat you. So
Yeah.
that's mostly. And also the clicker that they show in the snow, he has like fresh blood on his mouth. So I think the implication there is that he was eating the corpses of the other infected underneath the snow or something like that to survive. I don't know if that's what they
Okay,
were.
I was getting the sense that they were all frozen, and that the avalanche had unlocked them from freezing. But
At the beginning of the episode, I think it's the conversation between Jesse and Ellie. They established that the clickers, well, the infected, are using the corpses of the other infected as insulation to
Yeah.
survive the cold. So they were
Okay,
just
cool.
probably kind of like hibernating underneath the ice, and then when Abby falls onto the field of corpses, I guess you could call it, they they are awakened and they decide to go on a murdering spree, and unfortunately Jackson is on the way. So yeah, very good action sequence. The CGI on the bloater was a little bit obvious, but I really love I love the implementation of the flamethrower, which is another wink at the game audience.
Yeah, I feel like the bloater looked a bit better in the first season when it came out from the road.
Yeah, it was in the dark,
I
so it was a little bit.
I think maybe that was maybe why. But still like I was happy to see it when from you saw it in that long shot in the distance. You're like, oh yeah, cool, here comes the bloater. And then seeing all the siege preparations of the town was good. Like you said, when they're getting out the flamethrowers, you're like, yeah, this is gonna be a good episode. So I really liked all that stuff too.
They definitely listened to the criticism of the first season not having enough infected action, and they wanted to start with a bang, and they did. And this was a very well produced action sequence. Credits where credit is due. They did a really good job, and they decided to put Tommy at the center of this action sequence, which brings me to one of the major changes from the game that I wanted to discuss with you, which is in the game, Joel is on patrol with Tommy, and Ellie is on patrol with Dina. And the patrol on Ellie's side goes similarly to how it goes in the show. They find, well, Dina takes her to this place, this abandoned gas station where Eugene, who by the way is the therapist husband from last
Yeah, I
episode,
remember.
was cultivating marijuana. Was and they have a little smoke, and they have a little smooch, and the relationship starts to flourish. Instead, this time they pair Joel up with Dina and Ellie with Jesse, and Tommy remains in the town because they wanted a main character to be there for the action
Yeah.
scene, which is a choice that I understand, but also kind of like robs the later moments of some of their weight and heft, because
Yeah.
the relationship between Dina and Joel has barely been established. And I guess what they wanted to do was for people, like kind of happens in the game too. They wanted for people to think that they were gonna kill Dina, and that was what's gonna send Ellie on her revenge quest.
Okay.
Uh,
Do you think so?
I think maybe
Because I
but
feel like I feel like Dina, as well, yeah, obviously I knew what was going to happen as well, but I don't feel like Dina was ever in danger from that group.
yeah,
I don't think that group, because they'd already established their somewhat where their morals were lying. They're like, hey, we don't want to kill anyone other than Joel here. So I never really felt that Dina was in trouble. I felt they did the pairing change more to establish, oh, Joel is also like a surrogate father to Dina as well, and it all inspired Dina to go on the revenge tour with Ellie. It will give her more of a reason to go.
yeah. I mean, they've strengthened the relationship between Joel and Dina for sure. I don't think they really have that many scenes together in the game. So the fact
No.
that you open up the show in the first episode and the first scene we see Joel in is the scene where we are introduced to Dina too, that is significant. But I do believe that the choice was made mostly because they wanted a main character to be in the town during the siege from the
Yeah,
infected,
yeah.
and they couldn't have Ellie or Joel, and so the other main character that they could use was Tommy, even though he's a secondary character, but you know what I mean. A
Yeah, yeah.
more important character.
And
So
I mean it, well, just again it highlights they you know they're really establishing Joel and Dina's relationship in this second season. And
yeah,
at the moment, just from the last two episodes, they have a way better established relationship than Joel and Ellie do, which I just think is not is not how this show should be going. You know, you, especially in the moment where you're going to get rid of Joel as a character,
yeah.
and you're gonna establish that now he's more close to Dina than he is with Ellie. It's there's so many weird choices and like decisions they make with characters here. I just don't understand it.
I mean, again, the problem here is the source material. The source
Yeah,
material
yeah,
makes so many questionable decisions. Decisions that you can like or dislike. That's subjective. But when you're looking at the story that you're telling, so much stuff could have been done differently, arguably better, in my opinion. And seeing them sticking to the storyline in this way, even when they have the opportunity to change things up. I don't know. I feel like they're repeating some of the mistakes from the game, not really learning from the backlash. Some of the backlash was
yeah.
unjustified, but I think a lot of the backlash was just people saying, "Oh, we." We don't mind that you're killing off Joel, but maybe it would have been better to do it in a different way. Like I understand Abby's motivation to kill him. It's just that and the fact that Joel is no saint and he kind of deserves, in a way, what is coming for him.
Oh my
But
god, yeah, they're really pushing that angle. It's like, yeah, hey, Joel deserves this, and it's like, no, he actually doesn't. Do you
in
know
a
what I mean?
world
And
like
it's like,
this, I don't think the same standards of decency stand. Like it's not the same thing as valuing.
no, it honestly seems like the writer hates Joel now. Like they just don't like his character, and they want you to dislike him too. And it's such a weird angle to take.
Which is what people criticize the game too for.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
like you said, they had an opportunity to, and they have changed a little bits here and there, like establishing that Abby's crew are going after Joel. But they had an opportunity to change some other things. But if they had changed major things, it would be an admission that, hey, we did Last of Us Part 2 wrong, and we shouldn't have done these certain things. And like, ego comes into it where it's like, no, actually, I know I was right in Last of Us Part 2, and we're going to do that again in the series. And it's like, well, so be it then, and you'll see the same reaction
and the
that you
same
had from the
drop
games.
and the same drop off in
Exactly,
ratings and
exactly.
quality. Yeah. So going back to the episode itself, another thing that we were wrong about is that once Abby is running away from the infected and she runs into Joel, which is something that happens verbatim in the game too, she immediately learns who he is, which is something that we thought the show would hold on to a little bit longer. Literally, they they run into this. Uh, I don't know how to call it. This
It's like a big warehouse, like
big
abandoned
warehouse.
warehouse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Dina calls out to Joel, which is fine. I think it's realistic. Dina doesn't know that someone else is there, doesn't know that she
Yeah,
shouldn't
yeah.
speak his name. So it's even better than how it happens in the game, because in the game, basically Tommy introduces himself to Abby and then later to the other characters, saying his name and Joel's name, so they all understand who they are and what's going to happen now.
And
So
that's definitely worse than what they do here.
yeah,
But I thought this was terrible because, especially, they've established in episode 1, it's like, hey, all we know is that Joel's a middle-aged male. He has a scar on his cheek, a scar on his
forehead.
forehead,
He's good
and
looking.
he's a good-looking guy. And so you're established. I was like, okay, maybe it's gonna be a bit of a detective element going on here, and they're gonna try and be sneaking into Jackson and finding little bits of information to find out who Joel is. But no, the next episode, the first scene, they go to the town. She literally falls into Joel, and it's like the writers are giving her exactly what she wants in that moment. It's complete plot contrivance. Why did you even establish that they had this potential difficulty to find Joel and then just serve him up on a plate like straight away?
That's the irony. I think they're playing with the idea that, she was looking for him and she found it. Like, it's divine providence. Joel fell into her lap so she could extract her vengeance.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying that's what they were going for.
But before this, I did quite like, and I remember this scene ripped straight from the games, where she is like up against the fence.
Yeah, love
and
that.
all the clickers are falling on the gated fence, and like they're collapsing on her. Like, that was a really well constructed scene.
And that's a moment of gore there that I think you loved, where
Oh yes, that was cool.
the hand, like the one of the infected is trying to reach out to Abby, and he wants to get to her, that's like just trying to fit his hand through the fence, and you see like the fence splitting his hand in two, and the blood.
Yeah, that was good.
That was really well done. Bits and pieces of good stuff in there too. So another thing that I wanted to mention, because now we are in the full infected attack, right? And so we were discussing the choice in the game of having Ellie killing a bunch of dogs, and how people didn't really like that. So we have a scene in this
Yeah.
episode where dogs are heroes. They're released and they go into the arena, and they start biting
I
infected.
assume these are superhuman dogs.
Yeah, they're super
These
dogs.
fucking-
They're the same dogs that we're gonna see later this year in the Superman movie. It's a super dog who kills infected just by jumping on them. But they wanted to show that this show actually loves dogs instead of killing them. I don't know if we'll see any dogs being killed in the show itself.
Tommy's wife actually can be to blame. She sent those dogs to their death. She's an evil woman.
Oh my god, she's the worst.
Let's hope she gets her comeuppance.
Yeah. Or maybe she's gonna be saved by the homophobe, and it's gonna come
Now
full circle.
that would be an arc.
But
yeah, and that literally is the end of the clicker siege. She releases the dogs. We see Tommy's in the standoff with the bloater, and he's ripping it with the flamethrower.
Yeah.
And he uses the whole tank of gas on the bloater, and we think, oh no, he's gonna die. And then the bloater falls to its knees and has been killed just in the nick of time. And and then she releases the dogs, and that is the end of the siege on Jackson.
Yeah, very competent, very well made action sequence. With highs and lows, and the stakes are high. Generally really, really well done. And now we go to the controversial bit, because Joel has met with Abby, and they wanted to go back to Jackson to help out, but a storm is preventing them from proceeding any further. And Abby,
Well, no. Abby tells them to
yeah,
go to the lodge,
yeah,
whereas Joel wants to go back. And I thought this would be Joel would make the decision to go back. He sees the town of Jackson burning; they're in attack, but he decides to listen to this stranger he's just met to go into this isolated area and meet her croup, who she even told them, "Oh, don't worry, we are armed."
another out of character decision for sure.
Yeah, and this is Joel, who's wary of all dangers, and he takes all the precautions he needs. It's completely out of character for him to go and do what he does.
It was out of character in the game. It is out of character now, and one could argue, well, we want to show that Joel has changed. He has softened up. He is trying to be a better man. He's trying to be more trusting. But I think that's bullshit.
Joel's an idiot. Joel's an idiot now. Isn't he great character?
Yeah. Especially because, again, as you said, as Abby said, oh, don't worry, we are armed. I was like, that should be a fucking red flag, alarm blasting off in your head. Okay, we're not going there. We do not know you. You might be raiders, even though maybe you don't know who I am and you don't have a personal grudge against me, which is a wild guess to make. You might be dangerous. We don't know you. Why are you in the mountains with weapons overlooking our town? Like there must be a reason for your, but I mean, and again, the situation is dire. The storm is intensifying. We show later that Dina has some frostbite on her hands, so they had to find refuge really quickly for to save themselves. But this doesn't justify the decision 100%. And so we get to the moment that we were all been waiting for. Abby, Joel, and Dina get to the lodge. Abby informs her group of who Joel is, and everyone agrees it's time for a little game of golf.
So I was like, okay, maybe they're just gonna wound him in this moment, and they'll meet again, but they're not gonna do it right now. But then they do like the little pan over to the golf clubs in the background, and I was literally like, oh my fucking god,
that was a bit
right
much.
Now.
That was a bit much. The slow pan and reveal of the golf club with like the shallow focus. It was especially because how controversial and memed this moment is. Like, either change the weapon or don't bring that much attention to it. Like, it's so weird that like she just turns around and finally like the golf club is revealed, like it's a character appearing. And it's like,
there is no significance of using the golf club, but they try and focus on it like this is a big metaphor, or this is like this is a real. I just don't know. They're trying to focus on it like it had some significance, but it's literally just this is my random weapon of choice.
Yeah. So they use some kind of drug to put Dina to sleep so she doesn't have to watch what they're about to do to Joel. Joel understand what's going on, and before he can do anything, is shot in the leg, which is something that happens in the game almost verbatim. It's a little bit more brutal in the game. Of course, you can do more stuff than with live action. And then we have that scene that wasn't in the game and that people kind of complained wasn't in the game. But now that we've got it, I don't think it's better. So basically, we have Abby's monologue. Um, and this is where we rob Joel of another moment, one of his last moment, where in the game he says something along the lines of, well, why don't you do your little speech that you rehearsed and let's get on with it? Like he
Oh my
understands.
god. Is that what he says in the game?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Well, I mean, it's a better line than what it gets in this. It's like, oh, get fucking, just do it, already, or something like that. It's way
It's so
simpler.
pathetic.
It's so pathetic, and also I feel like, I mean, again, we were positively surprised by how quickly the show decides to reveal um, what what Abby and her group want. Uh, and but that was because we thought, at least I thought, that we were gonna get a slow burn of, as you said, kind of like investigation of who Joel might be, and then maybe they run into him but they don't know who he is, and then they find out, and that's a whole thing that you develop through a few episodes. But what we get instead is just verbatim what happens in the game, with the added context of knowing what they want to do. And now Abby gets to explain why she's doing what she's doing, which is something we didn't get in the game. And I don't know. I guess we can never be happy. People were complaining that she doesn't really explain why she's doing what she's doing, and that we only learn this later when it's not relevant anymore. And now that we get that scene, I felt like it was the classic monologue of the evil guy explaining, "Oh, you don't know, like the doctor that you killed, he was my father." And I don't know. I don't know if that's the best way to reveal and convey that information, honestly, because at that point, Joel knows he's dead, and he doesn't really need that explanation. And Ellie is not there to get that explanation, so she still doesn't know why they did it, and she's gonna have to learn that again later. So I don't know. Again, we are speculating on what might happen, but I'm guessing they're gonna follow the story of the game fairly closely now, because the only difference in this sequence of events is who Joel is paired up with and where the clubbing happens, because in the game it happens in a basement, and here it happens on the second floor of a lodge. So there's the
In a
windows and there's a nice view.
beautiful lodge.
So it's the same scene.
I didn't have as much of a problem with Abby's monologue at this point. It was, like you said, it did feel very like, oh, classic villain telling you why they're doing what they're doing in this moment. It's just how
Joel
no
should have
point,
said something there. I don't know, like I feel like
it's so bad, because Abby is literally going on her spiel, was like, you killed innocent civilians, and my father was an unarmed doctor, and he's a good man, he had nothing but good intentions. And at no point does Joel say, okay, well, is killing without consent an unarmed young girl and taking her brain out without telling her, that's also murder. So your dad was complicit in that. And are we not even going to address that that's a bad thing at all? Or is Joel just the out and out, he's the bad guy in this?
Yeah, and what is so frustrating about this is that one of the main themes of the game, and I'm guessing this adaptation of the game too, is perspective. Like it's about vengeance, it's about pain and grief, but it's also about perspective. You literally switch perspective to the murderer of Joel in the game, so that you can kind of like walk in her shoes and understand her reasoning and her motivation. And that's what the one trick that the game pulls to be more than what it actually is. So the fact that they refuse to see this incident from Joel's perspective, the protagonist, mind you, of the last season, like, we are not gonna get that. Like, he's gonna say, we're gonna have the flashback, of course, we're gonna have plenty of Pedro Pascal throughout the whole show, and there's gonna be a bunch of scenes where he talks to Ellie, and he's gonna tell her that, if she could do what if he could do what he did in Salt Lake City again, he would do it, because he would not sacrifice her for anything in the world. And that's his perspective. But why wouldn't he say that to Abby too?
I
Because
know he was just ready to die, and it's like, well, hold on, you are still the protector of Ellie, like, and if you die, then you are somewhat failing in your task here. But he was so, in that moment, he was just like, yeah, I'm so depressed, I'm just ready to die because I feel guilty for all the bad things I've done.
yeah,
And it's like, no, like, in a ways, you obviously, it was very brutal, but what you did was heroic still, if from a certain perspective. Yeah, it's like you said, we never get that perspective, because it feels like the writer in this moment thinks Joel is in the wrong and Abby is in the right.
unfortunately, that's what it feels like. And
And they don't, and from the games, because yeah, you might have a better recollection of this. There is one of the guy who's like a bit of aggressive in their group, who kind of looks like he's going to kill Dina. He puts the gun to Dina's head at one point.
yeah,
He's the guy in the game who goes up to Joel and goes, "Hey, pendejo," and spits on him, isn't he?
Manny, yeah,
Yeah.
I think they fused. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like they combined two characters. Like, there was one more character in Abby's group in the game, and I think the one that you're talking about, and yeah, is the
There's a
one.
character who looks like Neil Druckmann,
Oh, yeah.
and he's the one who spits on Joel and calls him a pendejo, and everybody's like, is this a Neil Druckmann self insert? And
It's
he's just
just
shitting on Joel.
Jesus Christ. By the way, the
Like,
actor,
what's wrong with this guy? What's wrong with Neil Druckmann? Why does he hate Joel so much? What the fuck is this?
I feel like he hates himself, and he hates the game that he made and how popular it was, and he thinks that he's, showing the fans off, showing the fans what they really should feel. It's kind of like what happened with Joker 2. Like,
Yes,
you
yeah,
know
you're very right.
Todd
Yeah.
Phillips was like, "Oh, people are idolizing this character that I think is pathetic. So let's spend 2 hours making sure that everyone understands Arthur Fleck is a pathetic piece of shit that no one should ever aspire to even
And the
be
audience
like."
was wrong.
Yeah, which,
Yeah,
I never
it's a good comparison.
I never idolized Arthur Fleck, and I never idolized Joel. It was an interesting three-dimensional character with flaws and virtues, and it was interesting to explore how, again, as we said in our previous review, his process, the way he opens up to Ellie, and that kind of sets him on a path where he is gonna, you know be willing to do anything to save and protect this person, because he, has interiorized his trauma of losing his daughter, and he doesn't want to experience that again. It's really engaging, thrilling stuff. That's what made the first game so unique, so interesting. The psychology of this character, and Ellie, to to a lesser extent in the first game, but she becomes a very interesting protagonist too. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're failing to understand the appeal of the character again, and they're trying to fix him, while they should roll with what Joel is, and what. I don't know. I guess we'll see how they work in the the
Yeah.
other scenes.
There was something that I read as well, and you might know whether this is true or not. But the first game was mainly written by somebody else, and there was a different lead
Amy
developer on
Henning,
it.
I think, is
Yes, and
Amy
then
Henning.
apparently then when she heard the plans for the second game, she left, and then Neil Druckmann took over as the main writer for the second game, and it is like, yeah, and that's why it maybe feels like the two games are completely different in what they're trying to do and what they're trying to say. And the second one is just purely aping off the success of the first.
The dynamic of what happened is never been clear to me, because I think they're still it's not like they're not talking to each other, or like she's been referenced, she's been there's a homages to her in like Uncharted, like she was the game director for, I think, most of the Uncharted games, and Neil Druckmann at the time was kind of like coming up in the company. It was one of the writers, but it wasn't the head of Naughty Dog yet. And he took over the Uncharted 4. He took over Uncharted 4 halfway through production, I think, and that's where Amy Hennig left. But Amy Hennig was heavily involved in The Last of Us 1, while she wasn't in Last of Us 2, because during the production of Uncharted 4, she left due to creative differences with Druckmann. That's what I think happened, but I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, I mean, that was a creative voice that is not present in the second game, and it might be attributed to her, the differences that we find in theming and storytelling. And
Yeah, definitely.
even Uncharted 4 is very different from the previous three titles. I think it's the best one. I like the fourth one and the second one the most, but it's the best one because it's a little bit more mature as a story. But also in that case, they're trying to kind of like deconstruct Nathan Drake as a character. Oh, you're just a thief, like running after treasure because you can't confront.
And this is Druckmann's sole version of the character.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you are running, which is something that they explore in the previous games too. But he explores it in a way where when you know that it's him, and you kind of like compare the game to everything else that is done with The Last of Us, you can kind of tell that those are the things that resonate with him specifically. Like Nathan Drake is like this Han Solo asshole type, adventurer guy. He goes on many adventures, he finds treasure, but then he never gets the treasure at the end, so he has to start it over again in the next game. And in the fourth one, he kind of like wants to go after treasure because he doesn't want to confront his marriage, his relationship to his wife, and like he is trying to escape the responsibility of a relationship. And
That sounds like Druckmann.
yeah, exactly. They're trying to, well, it humanizes him, and I like that, but I feel like it does show that Druckmann's sensibility is solely on that kind of like, oh, men are evil and they're not, they're very mature and stupid, and women should come and save them from themselves.
Yeah, and it's very much like, oh, people aren't interested in the swashbuckling adventure of a treasure hunt. They're interested in a breakdown of a marriage in an action video game. It's like, no, you're missing the point of what the real hook of these things are.
Yeah, fortunately, there's other voices too. We're like, no, we're gonna put a fun action sequences here. You can't do nothing about it, and there's not gonna be a marriage counseling sequence in the Uncharted game. You're gonna do a big action sequence on a pirate ship, and that's fine.
That kind of brings me back to, obviously, when we're talking about marriage counseling, that brings me back to thoughts about Joel and what we, now that he is dead, and obviously we're going to get flashbacks throughout the season. What have we seen of him in these 2 episodes so far? And it's so bad when you think about it. He had one scene where he was getting scolded by Tommy's wife about not having enough room and him not building enough, and he needs to work his fucking ass off to save these people, and he's an old man, but you best not stop building these fucking houses, you scumbag.
Yeah.
And then we get a scene of him being scolded by, we get actually a little nice scene with Dina actually when he's fixing the circuit breaker.
Yeah.
And we get a scene of him being, we get a scene with him scolded by the therapist, and then we get a scene, the last scene, and this is the last scene we get with him and Ellie, and she scolds on him and shits on him for trying to back her up when the homophobe is horrible to her. And they're our last scenes that we get with Joel before he dies, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a lot of flashbacks, like we said, and it's the last scene that we see. It's not the last moment that Ellie and Joel spend together, and they're gonna hold on to that moment for later in the story. And I think that's fairly, like, it's good to, because it's gonna be the emotional core of the season. I believe so. But I am confused on how they plan to split this into two seasons, because I'm guessing that at this point this season is going to be Ellie's quest for revenge, and then next season is just going to be Abby's story, and I feel like that's going to be a very tough sell for people who tuned in to see Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey kind of like journeying across the country, and at some point in the third season it's just going to be the secondary character who killed Joel being the protagonist, which is something that people complained about the game too. I don't know how many people are going to tune in for the third season. I mean, I am gonna, because I'm curious, but I don't know. It's a tough sell, in my opinion.
I think for a lot of people, it will depend on how the rest of this season goes. If they're going to have, it depends how much Pedro Pascal's in there. Because I genuinely feel like for people who don't know the games and they're just watching this as a big HBO show that comes out weekly, I think Pedro Pascal was the main draw for everyone. For the casual watchers out there, and I feel like and the dynamic between Joel and Ellie, and I think we're going to see a massive drop off after this, just like people did with the games. People aren't going to like this decision. Like I said at the beginning, my sister even messaged saying how gutted she was. She knows nothing about the games. Yeah,
Well,
it's gonna.
it's a gut punch. It's an unexpected plot twist. The way Joel is killed off so
But
unceremoniously
you
and
can
so
have,
abruptly. And
again, referencing Game of Thrones, we had the Red Wedding in season 3 or whatever it was, and they killed so many significant characters, but you weren't gutted by it. It's like it's a different reaction. It's visceral and shocking, but it still is really good in the story, and you're still hopeful with where the story's going to go. Whereas this is like, why have you done this now so soon? And it's like, okay, well, where's the story going to go? Because we've just lost our sole protagonist pretty much. It's yeah.
yeah, and also this brings me to what we were talking about, which is Bella Ramsey kind of, now that the whole show rests on her shoulder, I am not sure how she's gonna manage to sell the character that she needs to become in the next few episodes, because she's still, I mean, as I said, we compliment, we were fair to the first season. We said that she was perfect for the first season, but I do feel like for the second season she's not the right fit anymore, because Ellie has grown up in the game, and she has a different look, while she just looks like, you know Bella Ramsey from the first season, slightly older. And I don't know if that's gonna be enough to sell us on her revenge quest and her being able to do all the things that she's gonna be able to do in the show if they follow the story from the game. So
Things are about to get ridiculous, I have a feeling.
yeah,
And another couple things I wanted to mention, that are kind of were changes from the game as well.
yeah,
So another one of Abby's crew, one of the females is supposed to be pregnant, right?
yeah. The doctor, basically, the one who injects Dina with the
Yeah.
sleeping thing.
So we get she's heavily pregnant at that point in the game, and she goes on all these all these fucking quests and adventures while she's heavily pregnant. And maybe
There was
it
another
seems like
ridiculous thing in the games too. Yeah.
yeah, and it seems like maybe they've taken that out because they realize how silly that is. But we'll
mean,
see. Maybe they reveal that she's early pregnancy. We'll see.
they make you kill a pregnant lady in a quick time event in the game, and
Who? They make Ellie. Do they make Ellie do it?
yeah,
Of
uh,
course they do. Of
and
course they do.
it's even worse than the dogs, man. I was gutted. I was like, what am I doing? I'm just gonna stop playing because I don't want to kill anyone anymore.
Oh my god! Is she attacking you, the pregnant woman?
Yeah, I mean, I again, I haven't played it in a while, and I will play it again because I love being miserable. But yeah, at some point you reach this place. I think it's an aquarium, and you're looking for Abby, and you have already killed a bunch of people from the group. And I think she and Owen are the last ones standing, and she is trying to stab you, and she's wearing a very bulky um, coat, so you don't see her
Oh my
pregnant
god!
pregnant
And they
belly.
reveal it. They
And
reveal it once you've killed her.
yeah, you killed her in a quick time event, and then she kind of like walks up to her and removes her coat and reveals the pregnant belly, and she's like horrified.
Oh
And
my god!
so yeah.
Like they just really want you to hate Ellie and Joel in this second part, and why the fuck? It's so weird. So it's maybe they've changed that, which again is a slight admission from Druckmann that was stupid, and you're living in a fantasy world if you think that's something people can take seriously, and also the fact that we didn't get any. I think you get when you play with Abby in the game, you get this
Mhm.
sort of not a training montage, but we see that during this quest for revenge, she has built herself up and she's got really muscly now, and she's somehow broken into like a steroid factory and managed to eat all the steroids off screen. And that's how she got so big. And they decided obviously not to do that because again, they probably realized that is silly and it's not going to work.
Well, I feel like there was also a gameplay decision that they made. They wanted to have the more brutal gameplay that you can have with a character like Joel, and then you can't realistically have with Ellie, who was always more about sneaking around and killing people unseen, and using her bow. And so they wanted to introduce a second character like they had in the first
that
game with
could
Ellie and
that
Joel.
could punch clickers and knock them out with punches.
Yeah, and that the decision feeds into the gameplay, and once you don't have that need anymore of justifying this huge woman being able to just walk through a room and punching clickers in the face, you know you lose the necessity of having her being so massively muscular. So yeah. um
It
I
was
mean,
silly. It's a shame. I really wish they did do it like to see like they did with Natalie Portman in fucking Thor: Love and Thunder. If they'd CGI'd big like muscly arms on Abby, it would have been so funny.
there's still time, man. They can still do it. Maybe there's
They
gonna be
could
a
give
time
her
jump.
they could give her like the Drax arm that fucking that Daenerys
Emilia
gets
Clarke,
in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I can wait for that. Maybe there's gonna be a time jump so they can have the pregnant lady be pregnant, and Abby is gonna be a huge woman all of a sudden. Also, they changed the way she gives Joel the um, final strike, let's say,
I thought that was even badly done. I was
because
like, they should have smashed him with the club, not stabbed him with the club. It was
I
weird.
mean, obviously, it's less gruesome in the show than it is in the game. You can get away
Yeah.
with a lot more violence and gore in a game compared to a TV show. So Joel's face is not as beaten up as it is in the game. In the game, it was almost unrecognizable. And then instead of finishing the job with one last strike to the head, we show that the golf club has broken in between moments that we haven't seen. The golf club was broken, and so she grabs one of the two, like the tube, the hollowed tube of the, and kind of like stabs Joel in the neck, which I thought was very brutal, but also has less impact. If you know what I mean, it's not as, I don't know. It
It
felt
was very
weird.
it was very underwhelming.
Yeah,
Yeah, and as you know, as just a moment for, you know, like an action set piece or whatever, it was very underwhelming. And I kind of thought we were going to get again another Game of Thrones reference, but Pedro Pascal gets his head. Have you seen this scene where Pedro Pascal gets his head
oh
crushed by the
yeah, yeah.
mountain?
I know
Um,
what happens to him in Game of
and
Thrones.
it shows you how good you could have made a practical effect of a mold of Pedro Pascal's head and just smashed it with the golf club, and it caves in, and it's this really brutal scene. They decide, actually no, we're going to do this with a bit more like grace, and we're going to give Joel a little bit more of, a nicer death than that, even though we're still treating his character like shit.
I think this decision was made because of another decision that they make a difference with the game that I actually really liked, which is that when Ellie is, um, you know, on the floor, um, Abby's friends are, um, how do you say it? Um, Keeping her down. I don't know what's the word.
Yeah, they're just like restraining her.
Yeah, the Abby's friends are restraining her, and she's looking in horror as Abby kills her father figure, right? And in the game, she gets knocked down right after, and so next scene, it's her kind of like either waking up or actually just at Joel's grave. So everything has already happened, but here they just leave and she gets this moment where she can crawl to Joel's side and have this kind of like Simba and Mufasa moment where she's like, "Come on, wake, like Joel, please!" And she's crying, and I thought that was really touching and really well done, and I think it's an improvement on how it happens in the game. Um, Stupid scene anyway, but that was an improvement.
It would have been better if she was like, Joel, wake up, and his face was just like pate. It was like just it was
And
just a
that's
complete mess of brain matter, and she's shaking him. Joel, wake up, wake
yeah,
up.
that's exactly why they wanted the face to be preserved so that she could look at him, look into his eyes, and get a little bit of dead acting from Pedro Pascal, just squeezing Pedro Pascal for all his worth. you know so yeah. But bringing this home, I wanted to mention two things. One is that the song that plays at the end, it's Through the Valley, which was also played in one of the reveal trailers for part two, like one of the Game Awards or something. And it's a cover of the song by Ashley Johnson, who is the voice actor for Ellie in the game. So that was a nice touch, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool.
And she also plays, I don't know if you know this, but she plays the mother in the finale of the
Yes,
first season.
yeah, I remember this. Yeah,
there
yeah.
th- there's a bunch of actors from the game playing minor roles in the show. The actor who plays Tommy is the the lady, the leader, the lady leader, is the right hand man who gets obliterated by the bloater.
Oh
Uh,
yes, yeah. The bearded
yeah.
special ops looking fella,
Then you have the voice actor for Joel, who's the second in command in the cannibal group. And then you
Troy
got Ashley
Baker.
Johnson.
Yeah,
Yeah, Troy Baker. He's a great voice actor. Anyway, that's something that I thought was a nice little touch at the end.
yeah. So overall, what would you give the episode? What did you think of it?
I mean, overall, if I really want to be fair, the action sequence in the town was really well made. I loved everything with the infected. The idea of them, hibernating underneath the snow was really clever. I like some of the changes. If you have to do the same story as the games, and you're not gonna change anything, but a few minor elements. I think most of the elements that they decided to change slightly improved what was the story that they wanted to tell. the fact remains that the story that they want to tell doesn't really gel with me. I don't really love it. I don't think it's well done. And so I guess, 5.5 stars. No, 5.5 out of 10. Five out of 10.
That's actually a drop down in score from episode 1. So you thought this was worse than the first episode.
Yeah, because I was hopeful in the first episode, but now all my hope is gone, and I'm just gonna, I gave up, and I don't know. It's there's so many silly moments and decisions that they made that I just don't agree with. This is a 5 because of what they could have done, not necessarily what they did, because the episode is competently made, outside of a few moments that we mentioned, but I don't think the story is gonna hold from this moment on.
Yeah, so you're
And
kind of scoring it with a bit of sort of context of how this will play out now for the rest of the season. Yeah, that's
yeah,
fair. That's fair. It's yeah, I suppose I think I gave the first episode, it was like maybe a 5.5 or a 6. I thought it was just above average. I didn't think it was a great, like, our first premiere of the new season. It was very mid for me.
mm,
And this is a better episode in terms of entertainment value.
yeah,
There's a lot
true.
more going on, and like I said, I enjoyed this episode a lot more. And it was only until we got to the cabin and we did the pan to the golf clubs, I was like, oh my god, we're doing it now. And it's still like, it was interesting because it's just watching that thing play out, this big moment. So I still enjoyed it. I'd say I enjoyed it a lot more than the last episode, but you're right. The implications of what's to come, I think now we're going to see a massive drop off in quality. So, I'd give it a 6 out of 10 this episode.
Okay.
And I think this is going to be the peak of the show. And I think this will probably be the best episode of the show, which is crazy to think because it has one of the worst decisions made in it. But
I mean,
I'll be surprised if it gets better than this later on.
once you detach yourself from the story that they're telling, and kind of just enjoy the post-apocalyptic world that they've created, there's a lot of fun to be had with some of the infected that they're going to introduce. We mentioned the Rat King in the previous episode. It's another big infected monster that they hopefully will run into in this season. I have one last prediction before we move on. I'm calling it now. Next episode, we're gonna have a new intro sequence. The title sequence at the beginning is gonna change because they used the same one as season 1, and in the next episode we're gonna have a new one, and it's gonna be basically the same, but at the end, instead of having these two fungi, I guess you can call them, that kind of like symbolize Joel and Ellie. We're just gonna have one, and it's just gonna be Ellie, I
Oh,
think.
great.
So it's gonna be even more depressing than we expected.
But overall, yeah, I think our general thoughts is can't believe they did it this soon. Yeah, like we said, they're probably going to keep Pedro Pascal around a lot for flashbacks in the show, but I am predicting a massive drop off in not just quality but in viewership as the show goes on. And actually, it had a really successful return. The first episode of season 2 had more viewers than the premiere of season 1, which is so rare for a show to do. Usually, it's a drop off from season 1 to 2, and this had actually an increase in viewership. So they had something there, and just like the first game, they stuck the landing and they got more people on and they got more eyes on it, and they might, just like the second game, they might fuck that again.
I mean, the first game story and the show story is really good. So word of mouth, probably, people were like, "Oh, you should check this out." I know people
Yeah.
in my life who haven't played the game and love the show. So I'm really curious to hear their opinions on these later developments. I will let you know. I will let our viewers know what people are saying as well, because I think it's interesting to see the reaction, the gut reaction that people have to this development, because it speaks to how we see Joel, how we see his actions, and how the creator of the game see Jill and his actions. And yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see.